this bill, and I commend it to the House. Thank you.
Chris Hipkins for the balance of the 5-minute call. Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very happy to take a short call on this border processing trade single window and duties bill. Look, I think, like every New Zealander, I probably think most about border control when I'm going through the airport and going through Maurice Williams's SmartGate. It's one of those terrible things when I get off a long flight, a long overseas flight. It's terrible to admit that one of the first people I think about is Maurice Williamson when I'm going through the border and going through the SmartGate. You'll be pleased to know that the SmartGate technology has obviously improved considerably, because the first time I tried to go through SmartGate, I failed and it wouldn't let me through. I didn't pass. But my most recent interactions with SmartGate, you'll be pleased to know, are very, very positive, and I made it through. I was very relieved.
That was your security profile.
That was the security profile. That's right. The GCSB's been onto me. But look, this bill, border security is incredibly important to a country like New Zealand. To some extent, I guess, we're lucky in the sense we don't have any other countries touching us. We don't have other land masses touching us. We're surrounded by a massive amount of water. So that, on one level, makes controlling our borders a little bit easier. But then on another level, it creates a whole lot of challenges as well, because we can't patrol absolutely every beach and every potential area where somebody might try to come ashore in New Zealand. But I think, by and large, we do a very good job of controlling New Zealand's borders. And one of the reasons it's important, of course, is the significant biosecurity implications for New Zealand if things go wrong. We just cannot afford to get that wrong. We have some amazing advantage, I guess, in New Zealand in the fact that we are so isolated geographically as a country, and that has meant that certain things haven't spread to New Zealand, and we want to keep them out. So there's a whole lot of pests and diseases and so on that we've managed to avoid having here in New Zealand, and we want to keep them out. So that's where our biosecurity at the border is vitally, vitally important. And so I am concerned, I do share my colleague Damien O'Connor's concern about the cuts to biosecurity funding, because as we have seen just recently, New Zealand relies so much on our clean, green, 100% pure image. And any incursion, biosecurity incursion, can do significant harm to that. If you take the kiwi fruit, or you take many of our primary producing exporters, and the potential for significant economic harm to them from a biosecurity threat or a biosecurity risk, it's really, really important that we don't scrimp in this area in order to save a few dollars, which ultimately will be so detrimental and so expensive to the New Zealand economy should something happen and should things go badly wrong. So I think this is an area where we need to be very careful. But turning now to the bill that we are debating, the Labour Party supports this bill through its first reading, and we're looking forward to the Select Committee process on the bill. I'm sure my colleagues Damien O'Connor and Shane Jones and various others who have real interest in this area will be getting into the detail at the Select Committee. But we think that the frontline agencies, the border security agencies, do an absolutely amazing job. The Joint Border Management Initiatives was actually conceived when the Labour Party was last in government. One of the things, I guess, that always find interesting is, 5 years into my time in Parliament, it does, I guess it's heartening to see how many initiatives simply span across all governments, regardless of who the governments are. And in an area like biosecurity, where things, I think there is quite a lot of bipartisan agreement. This initiative has obviously been going on for some time, and we continue to support it. A single trade window will create a hub for exchanging information. And in an area like border security and biosecurity, the exchange of information is vitally, vitally important. It will introduce the first wave of a major information technology overhaul to replace existing outdated systems and modernise and integrate border clearance processes for persons, goods and crafts. So, this is people going through the airport, but it's also all the ships coming in. It covers quite a variety of things coming into the country. Very, very important. We need to make sure we get this right. I think Phil Goff made a comment before about the fact that the IT systems that will have to be put in place in order to make this work shouldn't turn out to be another Nova Pay or another ACC debacle. We've got to make sure with these ICT projects that we get those right. I'm not convinced yet that the government have sufficiently robust mechanisms in place to ensure that these significant investments in ICT and information sharing are actually going to run smoothly and efficiently. I'm pleased that the Attorney-General has been listening very closely to every contribution, and I look forward to seeing the passage of this through its first reading.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Border Processing Trade Single Window and Duties Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Border Processing Trade Single Window and Duties Bill be considered by the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I call on Government Order of the Day number 12.
Social Security Fraud Measures and Debt Recovery Amendment Bill.